Sorry for the so it says the truth about low code, but it's actually a truth because I'm not that self-obsessed to think it's my truth. So it's more like a truth, which is my truth. And I will talk about some opportunities and misconceptions that I've encountered as these tools. And I'll also talk about not only low code, but also some low code. And the agenda, I will give a short intro. I'm guessing most of you have heard about the nowadays. Apart from AI, they're also seeing the buzz. I will then go into opportunity perceptions about it, a short case study, some challenges and lessons that I've learned, the future of no and low code, but again, it's my predictions, and then I'll draw some conclusions and some time for Q&A, but I'll be very happy if any of you had experience with these tools, share from your experience, what you've learned or what challenge. So to introduce myself, I am a backend developer at Project A, and maybe it's a bit unusual, I guess, for a developer to talk about no code and low code, as you will see here. It's about citizen developers, but what's that? And I'll start first with some numbers. As we know, in today's day and age, everything is about efficiency and delivering things as fast as possible. And now you have to do, like startups have to deliver something in months rather than years. So you don't have as much time or money as before to bring something to production. And the promise of these tools is that they can help with that, and you don't need developing engineering. You can set it up yourself. That's the promise. I think also the numbers talk for themselves. In 2024, the projection for the revenue of these tools is over 31 billion. And then you have also more than 200 no and low code tools. But you might ask, if you haven't heard about these tools, what's no code, what's low code, and what's a citizen developer? Because it's not a pedestrian on the street. I mean, it could be a pedestrian that develops, but no code are drag and drops application platforms that are mostly targeted at business users. So think marketing, sales, finance, HR, all the operational side that is not technical. It promises to help them make their life easier, to not wait for developers to get to their requests in the ever-growing backlog. And also low code are the tools that still use drag and drop, but you can also use minimal coding. So in low code, think about Zapier, Make, and for low code, think about Microsoft Power Apps. You can use as a hybrid solution between visual drag and drop, like Power Automate, and then you can also use some functions. And what is a citizen developer? I might not be a citizen developer, as I'm a backend developer, but a citizen developer is somebody that works in the operational thing that is non-technical and wants to make their life easier and not wait for developers to make their life easier. And as we know, there's the debate of developers are always grumpy and slow in bringing their idea to life. And on the other side, as a developer, you say, they don't understand me. They don't understand that I'm bringing so much value to the company. And I take their email optimization or any use case that you have a repetitive task in your daily life, in your daily work life. The developer will complain. So that's a citizen developer. And these are just like a couple of the no and low code apps that are right now on the market. and new ones get developed every day. And I think it's important also to talk about how these tools came to be. And we both know Microsoft Excel, and I think that's a good start, as Microsoft Excel also revolutionized the workplace, as it empowered business people to automate calculation and work with data in more non-technical way. And then we see WordPress that again revolutionized web pages. So as a non-coder, you can now create your own websites, and you don't need coding. In 2004, we already see the terminology no code emerging in Google Trends. Then in 2006, we see Shopify and FormStack. Shopify revolutionized e-commerce, and FormStack form building. And in 2011, we already see Forrester using local developments in a report. Then 2012 is one of the booms where you have platforms like Bubble, Zapier, and others that get shipped to the markets, and now anybody in theory should be able to automate their work and even build full-fledged applications, as in the case of Bubble. In 2000, then we have Webflow that in 2012 that allows with drag and drop to build websites. And like WordPress, now you can use visual development to create a web application, websites. And then we see in 2008, it's a major step, as we can see that the market share of these type of applications hit in market share, and we also see Power Apps. Power Apps being a low-code application developed by Microsoft, and this allows for hybrid solutions. So not only drag and drop, but also traditional coding. Then we have 2020, as we all know what happened in 2020, and probably also throughout history, most crises also lead to some sort of renaissance of in certain fields. This was also the case for the digital space, as it definitely disrupted the digital space with the boom of online shopping, and also the easy money that and we had like so many companies being started by then, because it was so easy to get investment for any idea that you had, and there was also a shortage of developers, which the low code and no code plays into that, because it promises that anybody can learn to use these things and at least an MVP. Then we have 2023, which the GPT in the mainstream, and also the co-pilots. The co-pilots definitely revolutionized our lives in one way or another. And also AI, also these no-code, low-code tools, is now you definitely see the AI stamp on most of these tools, saying that they either have co-pilots or AI capabilities, and basically create a workflow with a prompt. And what the future holds, I think that's very hard to predict, but we'll see in later slides what I think about that. And then we can also see that the market share skyrockets during COVID from 6.6 billion, double that amount in 2 years. And then this year, as I said, it's projected to be over 31 billion. Hope I didn't bore you with that. So let's get to the more part, which are some opportunities and misconceptions. And one opportunity is definitely empowering non-technical users. As we know, developers are expensive and good developers are hard to come by. And also, developers maybe shouldn't focus their time on working on email automation, or this is like the easiest thing of, and they can work on more digital solutions where the expertise is best used. And so now you can have, for example, a marketing person being able to automate their email reach by themselves or with minimal support from a technical person. Then definitely the speed of development and innovation, especially when it comes to startups. You want to build something fast, so because it's how you get more funding. And if you're thinking to build an MVP, these tools definitely help you with that. Or if you have like a not complex and you don't have a lot of traffic, this is definitely something that can be used in the markets and MVP. And it reduces costs and it increases efficiency. Costs, it depends. Yes, you won't need a full engineering team, but if you've never used it before, if you don't have much experience, you might still spend a lot of time in building these automations and either reducing cost or being efficient. But if you feel comfortable with these tools and you are short for cash, definitely it can save you some developers, and it can. Now I will go to some misconceptions because these tools are great, but they are not perfect. And there's some misconceptions that I've met when working with these tools, also discussing with technical people. The developers are no longer needed. At least as of today, that's not the case for sure. Developers might not be needed when it comes to simple use cases where you need to automate a simple task that you're doing in your daily work life. And yes, wanting the developer necessarily to do that for you, you can do it yourself. The same way you don't need necessarily a developer to work with Excel, you can do it yourself. No technical knowledge needed. I think this is my biggest problem with these tools, because you see everywhere being marketed as you don't need any technical knowledge. It's you can just start working with it and you don't need any knowledge. But I would say that that's a fallacy, as yes, you don't need to know about cache tables or Kubernetes clusters, but you do need to be technical literate. You need technical literacy. And what I mean by that is that you do need to know what are some. You need to know about data structures if you're working with data. You need to know how to build a flow, so the logic to implement that, and you need to know about APIs if you need to work with APIs. So no technical knowledge needed. I would take it with a pinch of salt. It means you don't need to know deep technical topics, but you do need to know some technical topics. These two platforms are inherently insecure. I also don't agree with that, especially if you are looking at the bigger players, because most of these platforms are actually built with an enterprise company needs in mind. So they definitely have the security protocols in place to serve an enterprise level company. And the costs are close to zero. I think that's also a lie. The costs are definitely cheaper, or they can be cheaper than traditional implementations, but are not close to zero. Yes, you don't need a huge engineering team. You don't need designers, PMs. You can have a couple of operational people that are business people that are doing these things. But if you want to run this at a more upscale level, you do have like a team that only handles topics, and then the costs are not close to zero. And also, these platforms can be cheap to start with, but if your demand increases, if you have a lot of traffic, if you are working with a lot of APIs that have their own pricing models, the costs definitely rank up. And then to talk about the case side. So we have worked for a medium-sized tech company, and their need was to enhance their business reporting. And one of their pain points was that there was a lot of data redundancy and also a lot of manual data entry, which led to a lot of it was prone to human error, let's call it that. And the topic was driven by the business teams. And this is why we chose a no-code solution and not a traditional coding solution, as we were working with APIs of different systems to orchestrate the data and centralize it in one place. The challenges when using no-code tools were definitely the complexity of the systems when it came to data structures, but also the knowledge gaps on one side, the technical knowledge gap of the business people, but then also the domain knowledge of us, the technical people. And the process that we had was to first define the requirements, to structure the data, to implement the solution, test it, and then also train the non-developers to be able to maintain the workflows. And the results were a more agile process, as you didn't have the manual entry, and also less prone to human errors. There was a quick turnaround in addressing business needs, as they needed to have more transparent reporting and also empower the non-technical staff. Let's talk about some numbers when it comes to this project. So we were 1.5 full-time employee, and our tasks were to organize, to build, to test, and deploy, and also to train the staff that will take over from us. In total, we've built 5 workflows that cover 3 departments and 4 systems. And we managed to do this, give or take, 1.5 months. And now the question is, so how effective are these minimal coding? Because with some challenges, I did have to use some coding to help me map data, but I will talk about that a bit later. The answer is, compared to traditional implementations, it did save half of the amount of time and also costs, but I will still take that with a pinch of salt when looking at these numbers, especially at the cost. As you have more traffic, the costs, the percentage will go down. It will. And now let's go to the real part where I talk about some challenges that I faced and also some lessons that I've learned with the project. So as I mentioned, one of my challenges was data mapping as back to this feature, or it's very limited. There is no way, like official way to map the data in a native way. So we had to be creative, especially when working with some complex systems. One of them also, it was a split API between a SOAP API and the REST API. The nightmare of working with a SOAP API. And robust error handling. This was another challenge that we had, is when you're working with these tools, you definitely have to rely a lot on what error messages they display when one of the APIs returns an error. And some of the times the errors are very helpful to say. As a developer that's debugging, it's definitely something that you want to do yourself, and it prevents you to do that. And it can get pretty frustrating. And also, we are more used maybe to monitor and log the errors in a more professional way, while this one, Slack messages, emails, it's not ideal. You spam a lot of people with instead of having them streamed on a platform that, or at least the tool that we've used, this was the case. When it comes to scalability, I think this is the major pitfalls of and the challenge that I've encountered with this was that we've had a data process that was a bit more intensive, but more intensive for these tools, not necessarily for an engineering process, as it timed out, as it was having to process around 1,000 to 2,000 entries. Not a lot in engineering terms, I would say, but for these tools, it's definitely a lot, especially if the process is intense. But I would also say that maybe if I would do it now, I would set it up slightly different than when I started this project. But at that time, yes, scalability is definitely had to be creative about and implement some solutions that are a bit hacky, thinking from an engineer point of view. Then the feature-based development and testing. Testing here means burning money. I mean, in general, I guess from a business point of view, testing is burning money. But here even more, because in traditional development, testing costs the developer time to do the testing, but the developer can test the things locally. Here, you test the things in the app, and everything in the app costs money. So every run that you do to test your flow, it costs operation, as they are called in the platform. So burning money. Apart from time, now you're basically also burning costs to the platform. And feature-based development. This is also something that these tools excel at, and this is something that it's important for developers to have, as you want to work more modular instead of building something that is like a workflow, which was the case for us. There were a lot of processes, but again, 1 year later, I say that it was also an experience problem. Now that I'm thinking back, I would definitely break things differently now that I have a bit more experience with these tools. But I definitely fell into the pitfall of the beginner of over engineering stuff. I can definitely admit that this was also a human problem, not only a machine problem. But yeah, they are not great when it comes to feature-based development, and definitely not so easy to work in tandem, so in teams. If I'm working on the workflow and then another person is working on the workflow, we're going to override our changes. The technical knowledge gap. I would say that this is a pitfall also because of the false promise of these tools. That you don't need any technical knowledge. You can get it up and running and you can do everything with it. And yes, technically, in theory, actually, it's possible, but it might take you months to build something that maybe a technical person would take a couple of days, and that's not on you, that's on the marketing of these tools. That's probably something that actually cannot deliver sometimes. So if you're thinking to look into it, definitely learn about APIs, data structure, and how to error handle and to understand errors. So error messages like what's a 400? I mean, I'm guessing most people here are technical, so I'm definitely, definitely don't have things, but yeah, these are some topics that are definitely needed for this type of. And there's some lessons that I've learned. It's empowerment is no replacement. Why I mean that? The aim of the project was for me to implement the project, but the idea was for somebody else to take over, which was a non-technical person. But in the year that I built the project, for the past year, I was also the one maintaining it, although that was not the goal at the beginning. So I think the success is definitely winning the race together. So having hybrid teams, yes, the business people have the domain knowledge. So I definitely don't know the needs of a finance team better than a finance team does. But the finance team doesn't necessarily know how to work with APIs and how to implement their idea. I'm not saying that they don't, but it's not something that they might know, as it's not their daily task. The right tool for the right job. I think what I've learned here is that these should be escalated when things get out of hand. So you should know to distinguish between when low and low code make sense and when the things should be developed with traditional development. As this is not the case, and now the next step is for them to develop the project with traditional development. Model the data to avoid delays. This was something that I wish I planned for before, although it seems like such a no-brainer. And what I mean about that, requirements change all the time, and we were in the rat race to finish things. That these requirements changing definitely took some of these advantages away. And keep it simple. As I said, I definitely fell into the pitfalls of the beginner and I over-engineered stuff. So if I would be to do things again today, I would not build it the same. I would not create. It looks insane. Like if you see the workflow, it looks insane. It might seem impressive, but it's not. Now, a year later, it's quite embarrassing that it is that complex. And yeah, this is also the reasons why it's harder for a non-technical person to take over such a workflow. It might look impressive, but it's not. There are some, you might have some costly surprises, especially if you're a beginner, as I was also when I started journey. It took me a bit longer than it takes me now to create a workflow and come up to design it. And also every API, every interface that the platforms are APIs that have their own pricing model. You have to create accounts with all these other APIs. So for example, if you need to work with the tool that we use, Make, doesn't have a way to read PDFs. So you need to to a PDF or API that helps you with that, and that costs money. And then I have some recommendations for myself and for businesses. If I would be to start today, to assess the complexity of the projects, I think that's something that we underestimated how complex one of the systems was the one that has a SOAP API. And that cost us a lot of time to figure out the correct data structures. And yeah, we were not the experts in the system, and it definitely took us longer than projected initially. Another one is invest in training. I think this is for a business the most important point. Yes, that your business teams should strive to work with these tools, but you also need to allow them time to train and also work on these type of topics. And maybe it shouldn't come on top of their existing tasks, because then they will be overwhelmed, because this is a new topic that they have to learn. And yes, allow the employees to take time to training these tools, offer trainings, but also allocate some time for them to actually work on this topic. Another one is this one is definitely for myself, to start more than scale. Is at the beginning to start with small use cases that are easy to understand for non-technical people and also for don't have much tools, and then scale up to the more complex solution of integrating data system complex. Choose the right tool. I think this one speaks for itself. There are so many tools to choose from, but as we, for example, in development, you have so many programming languages that maybe are similar, but they serve different purposes. And plan for hidden costs. Although they promise you that you're going to save so much money, and they show you that they cost $10 per month, you plan for more costs if you have more complex cases and you have more intense traffic. And also if you need to use third-party APIs, because the tool doesn't offer all your necessities. I think it's important to also maintain IT involvement, especially at the beginning, until the non-technical users get familiar with the tool. So it doesn't mean that now the tech team has to work with these tools, but it's great if they can maybe consult in certain topics. But again, that means that you're taking away time from developers working on critical business. But I think that it's another topic. It's great if IT can still be involved in these topics, at least for the first year, until the business, the citizen developers get familiar with this. Regularly review and iterate. I think again it's a no-brainer. As I said, I'm not proud of what I built 1 year ago. Now, a year later, and this definitely proves the point that you always improve your code, improve your workflow, and not just you build it once and it will just run on forever, because that's not the case. Things deprecate and you'll gain more knowledge and get better at things, and you can make things easier, because simple is better than complex. And it might look impressive for your friends that know nothing about it, but it's not impressive. And to work with these things, and if somebody else has to take over the work. And hiring, I think it's also very important, hiring internal or external, to look for tech savvy people and people that are curious about these topics, and also quick learners. I think it's important to identify the right profile for these topics and not force people into this topic, because then it's not going to be successful. And now some predictions. As I mentioned in this at the beginning, when I was talking about the history of it, copilots definitely empower citizen developers even more. It's now you can basically create a workflow with a prompt, a good prompt. But what's a good prompt? There's another discussion. So this is what you can do, for example, with Make. As you can see, they have many options. Now they even have the chatbot through error handler, which is great, especially for a citizen developer that doesn't have much experience with the errors, it helps you to know what these errors mean. But as you can also see, it generated a workflow that you can now test. You first have to create connections to your email account, to your Google Slide, Slack, and OpenAI for you to test this. But as I said, every time you run this flow, you are consuming 4 operations platform. So you're basically burning money every time. And there's no way, or at least maybe I don't know about it, and way to test this offline. But yeah, as far as I know, at the moment, it's not really possible, and it would be great, to be honest. And these are some of the applications that have AI incorporated in one way or another. And the orchestration of traditional and no code development. I think this would be the perfect balance to be able to work. And I think I believe that this is going to be the future, that we are going to have, like now, as you have Kubernetes clusters, you're going to have traditional solutions combined with no code and low code solutions. And hybrid teams are definitely the win team, as business teams definitely have the domain knowledge and they know the business pain points, where developers have the technical knowledge and how to implement them. A combination of these would be the perfect future. The no code will become as or more mainstream than Excel. So when I was researching about this topic, and I was working, I came across this ad from the 90s of Excel, and to be honest, it really seems very familiar with how these tools are. So it's this guy that is stressed that he's not meeting his deadline, and then one guy comes with his Excel magic to show that, oh, it's so easy to now create nice that. And no code platforms. I think the future will also be these platforms that would be industry specific, as they would cater to specific needs rather than they are trying to be a Swiss knife. I think this is one of the pitfalls that they have. They are trying to cater to everybody instead of maybe there should be a tool that addresses things for the healthcare or just for the finance, as it will allow them also the time to build features that are specific to one team rather than try to build something that is for everybody. And some conclusions. Empowerment, but as I said, empowerment doesn't mean replacement. So I think empowerment to work together, maybe that's a better term. I've learned a lot about marketing in the past year, and I would say that I have found respect for business people for sure. Planning, I think is a brainer for most things. If you plan upfront, you are definitely saving yourself a lot of pain. Agility, when we are talking about our processes, you can reduce manual tasks and definitely allow your business team to focus on, again, business critical tasks rather than outreach. Again, that is a business critical thing, but maybe there are better ways to do it than doing it manually. Scalability, it's possible, but I think that here is a place where it has a lot of work to be done to achieve scalable and high traffic application. You still need technical literacy. One thing that's everybody should know about these tools, that yes, you need less technical knowledge, but you do need some technical knowledge. That's it. And now I would really like if you have any experience with if any of you has any experience with this, would want to share there, or if you have any questions.
Thanks for the talk. I think it really took promise on the title, so thank you for that. So you mentioned 2 KPIs, reduction. Up at the end of the state, you said like organizationally, but also that there are still integration and big cost. So if you like think about it in total, what's the total time saved? Still use the same KPIs with around like a 40-50% reduction, or to be considerable.
I mean, if we are to break them down on sections, yeah, it wouldn't be the same. And when it comes to infrastructure, you are taking some, right? Because you don't have all these, like, for example, monitoring and alerting and logs. You don't have some of these that you have to implement, or you don't have to pay for the function. But for your code, right? You don't have to pay for any cloud, basically, but you can still have some cloud services. But yeah, you're mostly saving time. That's the biggest. We're not saving a lot of time because you don't need traditional teams anymore. You can have more like hybrid teams instead of having a couple of engineers have support for. But again, I would still not recommend it for medium-sized companies. They want to run their company on that. I think these are tools for optimizing tasks. Like if you have like a daily task that you're doing manually, yes, but I don't know if I would recommend them to build an application on that, or an application that has a lot of traffic on that. But there are some cases, I think, there's one by one of the companies that actually use for some time on their business fin. It's one of the success stories. Now they also switched from that. They're not using completely, but possible. But I think at some point you do have to create a list of hybrid solution of traditional coding and so yeah, operational costs are the ones that are reduced the most compared to infrastructure. It's the pinch of salt comes to that.
Thank you so much, Maria.
I can answer that question.
Exactly, we have to do that question later. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.